I got you hooked on radio. You got me hooked on audio.
Let me just check something here. Audio 1 2 3 4 5 5 4 3 2 1.
And this is an audio check 1 2 3 4 5 4 3 2 1.
All right, so we are gathered here on 3880. What are we doing here?
We're talking about the transmitter named Dewey, the Dewey transmitter, named Dewey. The dog's built in 2019 by the Italian Mafia of Indianapolis, and the transmitter's name is Dewey, and in memory of the best dog you could ever meet. This is a Para 4-400 screen-driven AM transmitter with 100% duty cycle, 90% negative, 96% negatives, and 125% positive peak. The easiest and the best thing to ever operate ever.
Roger, got plenty of top in for sure.
You want bottom in bass?
Maybe a little bit. 100 cycles plus 3.
I can give you that. Sure I can. I can give you anything you want. Okay, you want it? I'll give it to you. You said I can give you some 63s. I can give you 100.
Give me 100.
More? You want a little bit more?
Yeah. Did you do 100?
I'm on 125. You want me to take it up or down?
No, that sounds pretty good right there. All right, and let's see. So we're going to talk about what?
We're going to talk about the AM transmitter, the second one that Borgi Kc9Vkv built in 2019. It's a screen modulated Para 4-400s, and it's on QRZ.com as well. And it's built by the Italian Mafia of Indianapolis.
Alrighty, and what kind of output power are we talking there?
It'll do full legal limit.
Till the cows come home.
Yes, sir. It'll do everything till the cows come home.
Is that the one that was tested with Patsy Cline's I Fall to Pieces?
No, sir. This is a different one. This is in a middle Atlantic rack cabinet. It stands 53 inches tall by 26 inches wide by 3 foot deep. It's a total different transmitter altogether, screen modulated as opposed to plate modulation. The plate modulation has a Para 4-400 modulating a 1000. This one here has a audio amp that's custom built by him with custom audio looms, wiring looms, and the audio amp is just below the PA deck. And it has a Peter dial transformer. It's capable of 1.5 amps continuous duty with 3,000 volts on the plate, and it's C-class, biased at C-class, and the audio speech amp is A-class all the way over.
Roger. Well, it really sounds clean and good fidelity on the top end there. Just absolutely clean on the syllabic range.
Yeah, that's what you asked for. I have a Envonics 223, a little pack of cigarettes about the size of it. It's a $1,000 audio processor that's used in the AM and FM industry and broadcast industries. And that I'm using with a 10-band EQ. With that, a combination of the 10-band EQ and the Envonics 223 and Jim Fergusson's tuna can microphone made by StarKist with a big screen in the front of it and basically an XLR in the back. Over.
Wow, that microphone really sounds good.
Well, that's because it's less than... Jimmy calls it less than $5. And on QRZ, I showed that it's the best microphone I've ever had. Over.
Roger. So, let's see, you're coming out right now with how much power?
I'm coming up with about 350 let me turn this down. 350 carrier modulating close to legal limit.
Roger, that sounds like a good ratio right there.
Yeah, and again, that's a PEP meter, and it's the linest thing I've ever seen. So, but it is a PEP meter, and it's a bird PEP, and it's just basically showing more than 4 times its peak. I don't believe that's the case, but the PEP meter is saying that. Over.
Roger. Well, at least on this band, we don't have all that stuff going on like what we had on 40. It was really strange on 40. Sounded like you were right in the middle of no man's land, and sometimes you were staticky and sometimes you weren't. This is just really solid here.
Well, that's what I said. We have to find the band for local chit-chat, and this is what it is. During the day, in the mornings, the band goes from being along to hearing yourself on Half Moon Bay. As soon as the sun comes up, you do good to hear yourself 50 miles.
Yeah, but you're solidly in the harmonic regional relationship.
Good, good. And the S-unit carrier is good to your receiver?
Yeah. But I would key early because there is band noise there until you key, and then it gets real quiet.
Okay, I'll key as quick as I can. I'll anticipate you keying, and I'll get you as quick as possible. Do we have the audio file rolling?
Yes, sir. We are rolling down the road.
So you can cut and splice anything you wish or don't wish, over?
Oh, well, I could, but the less editing, the better.
Sure. Well, anyway, I'd like to start out with a special tribute to K5IIA and memory of Brandon. And we know about the transmitter here, and we'll talk more about it. But basically, this is a memory of K5IIA Brandon, who, when I first met him, he was raising a very young little girl. She was very young. And Brandon, I met him on Pal Talk. And Brandon was an excellent little student. And, man, he was wanting to learn everything about amplifiers, you name it. And I went with him through building a single 3-500Z from start to finish. You name it, he did it. Good student. And but we'll continue on with this memory of Brandon, and then we'll go into this transmitter as well. We'll kind of do. Can we do two of them at one time there, Jim?
Yeah. I met Brandon, I guess in 2017, 2016, and I recalled when we talked, the propagation was just right, and we talked for a long time, and his signal was just dominant. And I think I said in the description that good signals don't just happen, they're created, and he definitely had created a great signal, Roger.
Oh, yeah. He was definitely light years ahead of his time. Being 45 years old and passing away last year in February the 27th, I believe it was a devastating, I just recently knew about this, and it devastated me. I could not believe that somebody so young and youthful. At the time that I met him on Pal Talk, we talked, and we eventually met in Manchester, Tennessee, at a gathering of great operators in Manchester, Tennessee, and I got to spend a whole 2 days with him and his buddy Billy and a bunch of other guys who were all hams as well. And man, could Billy cook some of the best catfish I've ever eaten in my life. You would not know it was catfish. It was breaded, dipped in some really good stuff. And the people that I had taken down, Dave Scott and all these guys from here, southern Indiana, they enjoyed it. They were, elderly people in their 80s, 90s. I took them all down to let them enjoy themselves. And Brandon was there. He was just the best host of all to talk to. Very, very, very polite. You couldn't ask for a better young man to be your son. Over.
Roger. And do you know where his location was, his QTH? It was down in Louisiana somewhere, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to get there right there. Brandon, like I said, when I first met him on Pal Talk, the band conditions were okay in the high ends. The low bands were not that great. And me and him got talking. And he is basically a unique guy, very unique. And his religion and everything, you can just tell that he was raised by good stock people, really good people. And I really enjoyed listening to him. And he was just so talented. And he was on an Apache Lab, a non-10, a little 10-watt rig, and he had built him a little amplifier out of a 2-pill CB amplifier. And I think he spent around $800 on everything. And man, did he sound great. And then he had a a bigger amplifier like a 3CX3000 that he was running that into with an unbelievable antenna system that had been through the hurricanes and everything. How he got his tires to stay up through the hurricane, I have no idea. But by knowing Brandon and knowing that he was a young man when his daughter was born, knowing everything about him after getting to know him on the Pal Talk for like 6 months to a year, we started communicating on the air back and forth and built a really good relationship. At the time, I believe he was running a 3. After we got done talking, he was running 3-500Zs. He went from 1 to 3, and his father ran a scrapyard somewhere. So anything came in scrap-wise, Brandon got to get a hold of it and revitalize it. So very unique individual, and like his huge I-beams and concrete for his guide wire system, you name it, and the ground system all the way around his home and everything. He was a perfectionist. N9GTO at Kc9Vkv in the group.
Roger. Yeah, I guess he was down around New Orleans, not too far from New Orleans, and we talked a little bit in our conversation about the hurricane effect on New Orleans.
Yeah, yeah, in depth. You did in depth. He was in Pearl River, 45 minutes away, to and from, so he was an hour and a half. And Brandon was right at 591 miles from you, so 600 miles distance. And he dominated 40 meters when he was on during the day, and 75, 3875, 3873. He dominated those guys. Unbelievable. I mean, he had a great signal, and he was so respectful. Like I said, I asked God, why didn't you take me instead of the best, the best of the best? And I'm not really sure what happened, but I hope that, I pray that, whatever happened fast. He didn't feel any pain, first of all, and I hope it wasn't due to working on an amplifier. I don't believe it was, because he got off the radio several years ago. I do believe he's got 2 grandchildren by the little girl that he had raised by himself. So he built a home all by himself. He's really a great guy. You couldn't ask for a better one. Like I said, I would love to have had him as a son. Over.
Yeah, Roger. I never contacted him again after that one initial contact, but then I haven't been spending a lot of time on a lot of different other frequencies other than 7188.
Right, I totally understand. But like I said, he was the one that really lit a fire under me. When I got the Bill Decker transmitter, one of them was an amplifier. It was a pair of 3CX3000s, and then I had the other where they had a pair of four of them at 3-500Zs, was on 80 meters only. It was C class, and it was just basically for some hodgepodge of driving a Ranger into using a Ranger as an exciter. It would have been a nice situation, or a Viking Valiant on the 3-500Z amplifier, but it took different situation. And one of them, I'd taken the one amplifier and took it to Borgie up in Annapolis and left it a while, and he constructed the transmitter I'm on now. So I love the heat that it produces. It makes me feel like I'm in the Bahamas. It's a dry heat. It is just unbelievable how it takes care of my arthritis. Kc9Vkv N9GTO, back to you.
Roger. Have you used your field strength meter around your transmitter to see if you got any leakage there?
I have a minimum amount. Yeah, I do. I have a minimum amount. It's acceptable as far as the field strength. The antenna is, this transmitting antenna is about 600 feet away. And I say this is, well, I can't say that. It's 450 feet of ladder line coming down to a custom homebrew 4-to-1. And then there's 7/8 hard line going underground. Yeah, I'd say it's another 600 feet from total with the hard line and the woods. About 600 feet in the antenna. So now this thing is totally RF-wise grounded to a special ground outside, It's not tied into the electrical ground whatsoever, but it does have the electrical ground just in case B minus or B positive would hit the chassis. Over.
Roger. Okay, your top end is catching up with you, so I want you to come about 2 inches closer to Mike.
Okay, I'm 2 inches closer to the mic. Is that better right there?
Yeah, let me hear you just for a second.
My dogs have fleas and seashore down by the sounding sheaves. Over.
Yeah, you can come a little bit closer than that. I want to get a good balance between bottom and top.
Okay, there we go right there. I'm at 4 inches from it at a 45-degree angle.
All right, do you have a windscreen on that mic?
I have a temporary windscreen on the mic. Temporary. There's 6 of them ordered. Over.
Roger that. Try coming directly into it and see what happens.
Okay, this is directly into it, and off the axis. And there's a custom old glove that's been made to put over top of it and taped around the backside. Over.
Yeah, you're fuller that way. You're not quite as bright. Or let me put it this way, you have more bass working directly into it. Sounds good.
Sure, thank you. Well, that's the whole ideal by doing this. And the field strength meter is low, and the wattage is normal, and the SWR is a 1-to-1.
All right, and who else were we going to talk about on this QSO?
BOB-W8LXJ. BOB-W is probably one of the unique guys. He's the one that had Art Collins's AM transmitter. W8LXJ. He lived in a home. He was a big-time farmer as well as his page is no longer there. But BOB-W is one. Then we have one more we're going to talk about. And BOB-W is a gentleman that one night I got a phone call at 11:30 at night. Lou, someone is breaking into another ham radio operator's home that's not there, and they're basically taking all their transmitter stuff apart, completely cleaning out the man's home. So I get on there and turn the recorder on, the Audacity 24-hour recorder, and I record these guys from 11 o'clock at night all the way to 7 in the morning. The whole time I'm on the phone with Bob in another room. And he's like, you got this, you got that? I said, yep. And so Bob is orchestrating everything about this transmitter being stolen. And it's one of Borgie's built transmitters for a really nice young man. You know, he was just, his mother had passed away, and he was in another location. And, man, they just decimated his home, robbing everything known to man. But a lot of it was brought back to avoid prosecution. So, but WLXJ Bob in Chillicothe, Ohio. And he lived in a big, beautiful brick mansion home, and he had farmer stuff all over the place, you name it. And I'd never taken an aspirin in his life. He passed away at 87 years old, just here recently. Over.
Roger. Now, he's the one that had the Gypsy Rose Lee story, right?
That is correct, the Gypsy Rose Lee story. That is correct.
Now, that's the oddest thing I'd ever heard about antennas being like 3 miles long.
Well, I'm not really sure about that one. He may have talked, his antenna wasn't like that. He may have talked about the Gypsy Rose antenna being a 3-mile road long antenna. I don't know, I'm not sure what band Gypsy Rose was on, but he may have had a big antenna in the woods or something. I'm not really sure. I thought BOB-W was talking on a doublet with a big matching link couple tuner. I do know one thing. The state came in and got BOB-W. They gave him $5,000 for putting a culvert in somewhere, something to do with a road. And he got the money and bought him a brand new 990 Kenwood. I believe it was 890 or 990. And boy, he really liked it. He enjoyed talking on sideband, and he had a great story to talk about. He really, really enjoyed the camaraderie. He was just so quick-wit and full of energy and full of knowledge that he will greatly be missed. Kc9Vkv with N9GTO.
Roger. And he was talking, that antenna was on Hawaii. That antenna, 3-mile-long antenna, was Hawaii, copying the mail from Japan, I think it was.
Oh, okay. Yep, Bob Blue will definitely be missed. And he came to a Louisville Ham Fest one time. I'll never forget it. Somebody had talked him into it. Him and his wife blew up in their plane, or they may have driven. I think they may have driven on this one. And boy, was she miserable, and he was too. It was not the Ham Fest he thought it was going to be. Over.
You mean as far as size or something?
Yes, size and the deals and everything. It was not a. It was maybe a 2% of Dayton. Over.
Right. Or Indianapolis?
Let's say maybe 40% of Indianapolis.
Yeah, I did fairly well up in Indianapolis when we bought all that coax, man. $10 a 100-foot rolls.
We did very well wherever we went, Jimmy.
Now I remember you and the guy next door, man. He was buying all your stuff, and by the end of the day, he not only had bought all your stuff, but the trailer too.
Yes, I had a trailer, and the trailer had a problem. I had the lady in Clarksville that I knew very well around the corner was a neighbor, and her husband had passed away, and he had a brand new truck, a brand new trailer, and a brand new boat. The boat was like a $35,000 boat, and there was like $15,000 owed on it. So I bought the boat. I bought the trailer, but the trailer had a lien on it, and I couldn't get the lien off because it was in a dead man's name. The boat was in hers, and of course I was going to buy the truck, but it owed more on it than what was worth. So I was stuck with a trailer with no title. And in Ohio and Kentucky, you don't need a title. You just need lights. Well, I got talking with him, and he was a Goodman dealer for the heating and air manufacturer I represented. So I was like, okay, how about this? If I sell enough of this junk out of this trailer, you get the trailer for X amount of dollars. He wound up buying most of the junk. Over.
Roger. It was an all-day negotiation. Every 20 minutes or something, there was a new facet involved in the deal.
Well, sure it was. That's my job, to make sure that I closed the deal at the very end. Over.
Roger. And so where are we going from here?
We're going to talk about Vern Casper at 5285 Gasline Road in Frankfort, Indiana. Vern is a very unique man. Vern is call sign W9, father and mother, as well as being a Freemason and a free and accepted Mason, a free man and an accepted Mason. A lot of people don't know what that means. But Vern owned several radio stations. And in Vern's previous life, when he was a young man, he was over with Asa Arafat in the POW issue. Then I'll get down to that. On his QRZ page, you can see everything known to man. Him meeting the king of Saudi Arabia, the Jordan. But anyway, he was a character, and I believe he was some kind of a signal in 1975 with Yasser Arafat. He was some kind of a government official that had to deal with the POW and the PLA. He spent a lot of time in the Beirut Green Line, but he was a very unique individual. Burned on several radio stations, and Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, you name it, he had been to all the country, Egypt, Nagasaki, Japan, Osaka, Japan. There's all these pictures of him and the Orthodox monk and Montessero and different people. And his two sons, he had two sons, he'd left everything too. And one day, me and Vern were on the radio talking for 2 hours all the way back when I bought the Roadster. And do you remember when I bought the Roadster from my father-in-law? Over?
Oh, yeah. Well, we took a ride in that thing, I think.
Yep, 1932 Ford Roadster, all steel, with a custom motor, Chevrolet drivetrain, Ford body, found on road dead. That's Ford. And so I basically got it, and it was all done, bought it at an estate auction online. Sight I seen the pictures of it all, but it was sight unseen to me. Bought it for him. And basically, there were some issues with here and there. The welding wasn't right on some of the things, and we had it redone. Had some new 4-link suspension put under it, little odds and end things. And then here recently, we just had sold it because we needed more room in the garage for other things. So we had sold it and basically he wanted to put his own personal car in the garage, so we sold it, and we basically broke even for what we had. You know, it was pretty. He said he was very happy about for me buying it and keeping it for 10 years. But getting back to Vern Casper, I had interviewed him for 2 hours, and there's a gentleman named Al that was in there as well, and there's another gentleman named Pete. Pete has this all on file and on audio on Audacity, and I've asked for the copy of it so that you can break it all down, bust it up, and do what you do best. Kc9Vkv and 9GTO.
Roger that. Roger that. Well, gosh, why don't you back off just a little bit on the top end? Now, you're really pretty syllabic now, so just about 2 clicks down from where you are on the treble side.
I can do that. Let's see here. You want the 1K down or 2K down?
2K down.
Okay, 2K's coming down. 2K went 2 down too far. How about right there? 2K okay now? And GTO.
Yeah. I just hope we didn't have any saturation on my recording. I'm always right at the top of that bits for my audio on my video, and if I hit the top end too hard, it does get crazy. So I think we're in good tolerance now.
Yeah, this is a unique little deal that there's a special firmware that my son was able to modify and get this thing to transmit 4 kcs wide. And that didn't, the people at Invonics didn't like what he did, and I had a problem with it, sent it back, and they said don't tamper with our design anymore, because my son, he's very good at what he does as being, you know, an engineer. He went in and modified the firmware to do some stuff, but the 10-band EQ that goes in the front of it, as well as the EQ that's designed in there, the 10-band helps add a little more to it, and I'm able to analogically adjust it by fingers, so that it makes it very small, compact. The Invonics sits on top of it, and it's in a little small rack by itself. But it does an excellent job. And I'm looking at the tubes. They don't even know they're on. They're just sitting there just enjoying themselves. And they're at about, I'm going to say, 35% brightness, maybe a little more than that. But they're really, and the cooling fan is not ramped up yet. There's a thermistor in there that can ramp up. It looks like it's about 28% on the cooling fan voltage, and it hasn't ramped up at all. So it's doing quite well with these key downs. Kc9Vkv with N9GTO.
Roger, this is probably the best I've heard you from the farm.
Yeah, again, we just have to pick our bands, because on 40 meters, we can't hear each other. I mean, I'm throwing everything but the kitchen sink at you, and more. And then, also, too, I'd like to talk a little bit about my receiving antenna. You ready for that as well?
Sure, let's talk receiver antennas.
Okay, I'd like to start out with saying that the station is, this station here is a really nice station, but the other station I have for sideband is basically an ICOM 7760, and I really enjoy it. But when me and you are on 40 meters, I can't hear you. So with the demise of all that, Jim, I basically had taken and had some guys, I hired them for a week, and they came over and put up a 60-foot tower and put a 4-element cubicle quad by Signal Engineering, good for 10 and 12, 14, 15 meters, and put it up. And it's up there now. I think it's got a 16-foot boom. And the engineer, Mr. McGinnis, he basically said that everything needs to come down tower at this, and this, and ground wires this and that. And it comes in, and there's a bandpass filter here on there's a preamplifier that's custom made, tube type, that we'll have to get some pictures up on YouTube as well. But it's a preamp that's designed for 80, 160, and 40 as well, to cover all the 3 bands with bandpass stops. It won't let anything above it or below it come in. And what that does is I'm able to hear myself or hear other people on the TS-850 SAT on an analog vintage radio, the Kenwood SAT. And I'm able to use that and receive myself, and there's several nanodes of a second between me transmitting and me receiving, so just a few seconds. and there's some Jennings vacuum relays it takes it to ground and isolates the speaker as well as everything else, and more or less says, hey, don't disturb this rig, even though I've got a signal on the S meter, the volume's attenuated and everything. So, but that's how I'm receiving you. When I'm doing the local stuff, I'm hearing you, but you can't hear me, all because of that 11 meter, 10 meter, 40, 20 meter beam up there. I'd say it's good for 10 more than anything as far as SWR goes. I'm able to hear you better. It's got a vertical and flat side polarization, but I'm able to hear you best here looking down at you. You're 600, 500 some feet, I'm 1,050, so I'm able to hear you, and it really helps out, especially with the guys up in Wisconsin. I can hear them on 40 meters now, where before, and the people around here told me, said, Lou, whoever you're talking to ghosts, because we don't hear them. And I'm like, well, I do, and I hear them now because I've gotten some emails from some guys up in Wisconsin, and they weren't happy that I was transmitting and I couldn't hear them. So I spent some big money on getting that done, and I can hear you so much better locally. Over.
Roger. Well, this is probably the longest that I've copied the mail on you, and it just seems to be perfect. So where do we go from here, sir?
It's up to you. I mean, I've given you an analogy of the antenna system, the receiver, the transmitter, and the transmitter, by the way, it kind of reminds me of a Cessna 172 in a way. With that being said, you have, let me get back here and look at it here real quick. You have the tuned input. You have the you basically have a band switch that tells you, you got a tuned input band switch from 10 to 80. You've got a band switch on the PA from 10 to 80, and you've got an overload reset button, which has only tripped out twice on me. You've got the antenna loading capacitor. You've got the plate tune, as well as a grid tune and an input tune. And with just them 4 knobs, if you've got the input band selected on 40 meters, 80, whatever, and then you've got your tank circuit selected on the same band, then you can basically dial it up with these 4 knobs and be right on the money without even looking at a watt meter. And you're there between the cathode current, the grid current, and your screen voltage. It's absolutely that easy. It's so much easier to operate this transmitter than it is the Jewel of the Nile. But yeah, being both of them built by the Mafia, the AM Mafia group of Indianapolis, that it's a really neat transmitter. And it took me a little while to get used to it, accustomed to it. Some of this stuff is a little intimidating if you just don't jump into it feet first and that kind of thing. So, and I remember when you came over and we had the Jewel of the Nile rocking the way it should have been. That's the way the Jewel of the Nile is. It got put back to exactly the way you left it in 2017-18 when you had made the video 6 years ago. So I would say that was 18 when you had made that live video. Well, the live video got updated 6 months ago. But anyway, that's where we go from here. And I'm glad to be able to make this vlog with you, and I want to thank you for all the thousands and thousands of hours that you give to the amateur community in service as a thank you back. We all try to need to give back here and there, and it seems like you've given some valuable time from your family and everything else to help out a lot of amateurs, and amateurs, as I call them, amateurs. Instead of amateurs, I call them amateurs. But anyway, I want to thank you for that as well. Kc9Vkv with N9GTO.
Roger, Lou. Always a pleasure, and probably the best Elmer that I know of, and I'm glad to call you my Elmer, Roger.
Well, I take it as a compliment. How I am, so you guide me in more guidance than you know yourself. But me being 40 miles light years ahead of my body in thinking and analogy and stuff, it's an honor to say that we started out with a great relationship, and me starting to listen to you in 1972, and then bringing it up when you got on 2 meter 440, and I knew that was just the beginning of a great thing when you started making all your vlogs at 2 meter 440, and now look what you're doing for the amateur community. Everybody knows about you. I go somewhere and mention your call sign, and voila, they know who you are. And I was like, well, you're not going to believe this, but I created that monster. They're like, what? I said, yeah, I got him off 2 meter, because it was driving me nuts. You stuck on 2 meter 440, and then you programmed the 2700 or whatever it is, ICOM. You had put 200 repeaters in there. And I went up one night and unplugged the repeater at the 14709 on farm number 1 and hooked that hard line up into the radio. And every repeater you had plugged in there, I was able to key up at 7 o'clock at night, Kc9Vkv and 9GTO.
Oh yeah, no, a lot of them were, you notice, on the same frequency, but it was a matter of where your beam was pointed north, south, east, or west as to who answered. Because, like I say, there were many shared frequencies, and my beams were delineating between the different repeaters.
Well, the G7 doesn't discriminate, and the tones is what changes everything. Every one of them had a different tone. That's how I was able to, and I heard 3 of them at one time, at one given time. But Phelps, Kentucky is 200-something miles away, and I was talking into Phelps like I owned it. Over.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we talked down to North Carolina to, what's that repeater down there on the mountain?
There were several of them, Hall's Gap, several of them all over the U.S. You were able to do better with your beam, but the vertical that I had gotten you in that commercial case, do you still have that on top of your tire?
Oh yeah, GP9, Roger. That's interesting. If anything's going, that antenna's copying the mail.
And it's in a commercial vessel, right?
Yeah, I didn't really like the UHF aspects of that antenna at the time, but in retrospect and in current usage, it's doing just fine, Roger.
Yeah, we had a lot of problems with those antennas at the farm because of the wind issues. It was breaking the solder off a lot, and me and you had to go in there and re-solder everything with a torch, basically just getting it hot enough just to, because we didn't have a soldering iron. We used a little propane torch, get it just to heat, just use the heat itself, solder it all back together, put new capacitors in there. Those capacitors were really bad off. I put the larger capacitors in there, and the antenna came alive. Over.
Yeah, main problem I thought was with dampness and leakage of water to inside the antenna.
That's why I painted the one I have up there now black.
Oh, really? Oh, okay, so it sealed the joints?
It sealed the joints, and there's a little bleeding hole down at the bottom in the aluminum, and it gets it so hot that the moisture goes out.
Yeah, well, it didn't earlier. I mean, that's what was our problem. We had to take it apart and dry it out for a period.
Jimmy, do you remember we had water running out of it?
I did, and so the weep hole didn't work, I guess.
No, we actually took a drill bit and made it one size larger, and then we took and painted it black. What I did was I ran the paint. I dipped it I poured paint on the inside of it, and then I dumped it out, and I let it dry for a week, and then I put the antenna back in it. So it's painted black on the inside, white on the outside.
Hey, roger that. Well, gosh, I think we've touched about everything that we'd thought about. Do you have anything additional?
Not this time, but I've enjoyed your time. I'm sorry your time is up, but thank you for yours and mine as well. I'll head back up to the other band. And God bless all the amateurs that are listening to our vlog, and 73s and 9GTO signing off.
Roger. Catch you later. This is Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor 73. We'll catch you later. Be clear.